All right. Formula One Philosophy is back for one last time for the 2025 season. Here to talk about the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix. It's been a wild season, up and down. Never knew who was going to win it, but I think we all had a feeling that after Brazil, it was Lando Norris's to lose. And he locked it up, I guess, in style, question mark, as we're going to talk about later. Yeah. Sean and I will get into that a little bit more. It's kind of hard. It's a bitter pill to swallow, but I've accepted it, and it seems like he was the chosen boy who was told to win or given the win at all costs. And yeah, that's that. Max wins the Grand Prix. Oscar Piastri second, Lando Norris third. You could make an argument that those were the top three. That's the list of the top three drivers of the season right there. And Sean and I will get into it when he joins us. I'm just doing a breakdown right now of what we saw in the Grand Prix. Max Verstappen, third win in a row. Winning, but just falling short. And showing, I think, in my opinion, that he was the best driver of the season, considering he had to deal with a team that was falling apart from the inside, as we learned a little bit more about today, with Christian Horner fired mid-season and Helmut Marko stepping down. Sean and I will get into that. But the ramifications, the proof that there was infighting amongst them. And I think Red Bull, in order to keep Max and make him happy, they got rid of Christian because it kept Marko quiet. As you saw, he was very not present after that point for the rest of the season. And then told him afterwards, you can step down now. We don't need you anymore. We've kept Max for a bit. We've turned this team around. We've shown Max how integral of a part he is. You can now step out. And Sean and I will get into that. But that just to me shows that Max was dealing with a sinking ship. And they almost got it over the line anyways for the drivers, which is wild. I've never seen a team like this falling apart. Maybe Michael Schumacher in 2006, but even then, I think Ferrari was still a well-oiled machine at that point. They had just struggled the year before in 2005 due to regulation changes. It's not really like that. This is something else, and this is something we may never see again. Lando Norris played it safe all race, and there was a lot of talk of him being scared of Charles Leclerc, who finished fourth, and worried about Charles catching him. And it seemed like at times he may put some pressure on him. I know earlier in the race it looked like Charles was trying to pass him, but never really a threat in my opinion. There was also the penalty moment where Sean and I will delve into it a little bit more. I didn't think much of it. I just thought, oh, okay, he passed off the track. He might get a penalty. It's not really a big deal to me. I understand Yuki moved under braking, moved twice, was kind of naughty. But it was no biggie to me until the media started, or Sky Sports in my case, started really pushing the fact that it wasn't a penalty. In no way should it be a penalty. And why would it ever be a penalty? Because he drove off the track to pass somebody, which is a penalty. That's why. So when that started happening, I got a little suspicious. Sean and I will delve into that one. Did that change the championship around? Probably not. I think Norris still finished 8 seconds ahead of Leclerc, and he had some pace to save. He was just bringing the car home at that point. 7 or 8 seconds, yeah. George Russell in fifth, a very impotent performance from Mercedes, being nowhere. Fernando Alonso coming sixth, doing his darndest to get Aston Martin that's 7th place or 6th place in the constructors, and they think they fell, how short? I think they fell like 2 points short or something. Yeah, 3 points short. All for naught, considering it was a bad race for RB, who got no points. Esteban Ocon finishing 6th, finally for the first time in a while beating Oliver Behrman on track and getting some sizable points. I know in Vegas he beat him, but who cares? It was 11th and he got a 9th after disqualifications. Who cares? He's been such a disappointment this season. We'll talk about that when we do our recap of our predictions, the over-unders. Sean and I are going to have another episode for that, hopefully around Christmas time for you guys, just to recap it. Nico Hulkenberg getting points in Sauber's last race, 9th. I'm trying to be fair to him this season because he did finally get that podium, but for the most part, he's just just been a listless season for him. I'll talk about it more in the predictions, but this is basically where he's been around all year, his 9th. And Lance Stroll getting a point. Cool. What a shame. What a horrible season he had. Where did he even finish? I know he was ahead of Fernando for a while, but yeah, he ended up finishing, wow, 33 points to Alonso's 56. That's just pathetic. And he was ahead of him. Tied with Yuki Tsunoda on points. That sure says it all, doesn't it? Yuki, another disappointing, listless race from him. Really needed to step it up, defend for Max. Did all the wrong things. I'm sure Sean will talk about it. Didn't help at all. It's not like he would have done anything in the long run anyways. But just to see him not even be able to affect the race in a race where they really needed him, like track limits and qualifying so he doesn't start high up, giving him a chance to fight Norris for third, which he never would have done. And then just starting 10th and then just disappearing and going long and then still not even defending. Lando, I think, just speaks to what his career was in the end. It was just something where he just never really had anything much more than a 6th to 10th type of finish, no matter what the car. I understand the Red Bull was hard to drive, but it shouldn't have been that hard. If Perez got 150 points for that team last year, you could have gotten half of that, right? 70 points puts Red Bull in second. By far, by like 40 points. They've missed Mercedes. Max by himself missed Mercedes by 18 points. And Yuki just completely disappeared. I understand he could never get his hand around the car. I understand it's hard to drive. But he just was never that good, was he? I think we just all deluded ourselves into thinking he was something else, something more than he was. We may get into it today. We may get into it in the recap section. But I don't know. I just never thought much of him, and I tried to be fair to him. He had some moments. Ended 2023. Those last 6 races really charged up the standings. Got racing. It was AlphaTauri at that time, 8th instead of last. Sort of stepped into it. Needed a bit of luck, I think, and he would have had like a podium one of those races. But I don't know. He was a pay driver who was saved by Honda, and we were told he was great, in my opinion. And he was never. And I think we saw it here. He's going to be where he belongs. Constructors was really amazing towards the back, and I'm sure Sean will get into that a little bit more, but RB and finished 6th, Austin 7th, Haas 8th, Sauber 9th. What a shakeup in the order. I really thought Haas would be a lot higher, but you can only do so much with a shitty Esteban Ocon and a rookie. Austin, I think, finished exactly where I thought they would. I thought they'd be worse, to be honest. I think they sort of charged up and got around the same points they got last year, but it was only good for 7th this time instead of 5th, which shows that a lot of jumps from Williams and Racing Bulls. And Sauber, they can hold their head up high. I knew they wouldn't finish last. I think everybody was just writing them off, and I've had a feeling that they wouldn't be that bad with the organization around them. But and I think they showed that. I think they showed that they were capable. Hulkenberg with the podium, yeah. But Bortoleto was steady, and I'm intrigued to see what he becomes next year. Not exactly holding my breath for his career, but better than expected. So yeah, F1philosophypod at gmail.com, F1philosophy at YouTube, and F1_philosophy at Instagram. To talk to see our videos, see our content, like our posts. We're going to get into a lot of things today. We're going to get into a lot of philosophical debates, I think. Talk about what we saw. Talk about Lando Norris's legacy, Max Verstappen's legacy, and what Oscar is going to become after this. I'm intrigued. I'm intrigued to see where this goes. And then we'll also talk about moments in the season that could have changed everything. So yeah, get ready, because Sean will be joining us in a second. All right, and Sean now joins us. We'll get right into it because I think there's going to be a lot to talk about. But first off, Sean, how was your week?
Well, the week just started, and it's been a bit of a shit show.
Oh, boy.
So hopefully it looks up.
Yeah, crazy Christmas time, right? Everybody's trying to get everything done within the next, 10 days.
Yep.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, at least we can find some time to recap a decent race. I don't know what your thoughts were on it. I brought up in the intro, like I'll let you talk about what you want to talk about. But I brought up in the intro Norris winning, Verstappen winning the race, Leclerc never being a real issue, even though everybody pretended it was. The penalty, Yuki, and then the ending of the constructors. So give me your thoughts on the race, and then we can get into whatever you want to get into.
Yeah, so the race was a good one for me. It was entertaining. Obviously, we saw a lot of what was happening up front, but there was also a lot happening down the field. And I don't know, nothing really serious changed down the field, but it definitely made for a good watch. Yeah, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I'm guessing like the most important stuff down the field, I think, was would Lance Stroll catch Nico Hulkenberg and potentially have Aston Martin overtake RB. I think they still fell short, but it was just Aston Martin had a chance for a sec with Alonso in sixth if Stroll could climb up the order. And yeah, and then there's just, I guess, Haas had a chance to usurp Aston Martin if Alonso randomly retired. There was some things to talk about outside of the obvious top three.
Yeah. Unfortunately, some of those didn't come to pass. I would have liked to see Haas take a higher position, but we got what we got.
Esteban Ocon can only finish seventh, apparently.
Is that where he finished?
Yeah, I think that's been his best position all year. The time he got fifth was a double disqualification from Ferrari, if you remember correctly.
Yeah. Yep.
Waste of a season for him. What were your thoughts? Did you think Norris was a worthy champion? Do you think Max? You wish you got a little lucky, or what are your thoughts there?
I mean, we've talked about it at different points in the season, and you and I have disagreed, and I think we're in relative agreement that this season was a little unfair to Oscar.
Mm-hmm.
And Norris is the beneficiary of that. That being said, we came to the end of the season, and Norris is the driver with the most points. So regardless of what happened, Norris was able to finish in first place enough times and finish second, third, fifth, whatever he needed to eke out 2 extra points. So I'm not one to say somebody doesn't deserve the championship. He clearly won it. Yes, we can say that he's had some help from McLaren along the way, but I don't think that necessarily takes anything away from it. Next year will be the real test. New regulations all around. We'll see who comes out on top. And we'll see if Norris is a Nico Rosberg, or if he's on his way to becoming a Lewis Hamilton. Only time will tell.
I could see either way, because to him it just has been mental, right?
Mm-hmm.
All of his issues have been mental. I don't think he's that good. I don't ever think he thought he was that good, but with a monkey off your back, you definitely do drive better with all the pressure that is self-imposed, by the way, because he said he was better than everybody else his whole career. He put all that pressure on himself, and then when it came time to perform, he shit his pants.
Yep.
But I can see without that pressure him getting a little bit better. I think you brought up something to me that we saw throughout the race, throughout the reporting of the race, through the commentary, where you said whether you like it, like you didn't say it, but like a lot of them said whether you like it or not, he got the most points. And it's been amazing to watch the meme around Norris, or the commentary around Norris, go from he's the best to, oh, he's the fastest but he's struggling, to he doesn't need help from McLaren. That's a conspiracy theory. McLaren's not screwing Oscar. They're doing the right thing that's fair to both. To clearly it's them screwing Oscar and going, well, he's the champion, deal with it. That's what I've taken from the commentary the last couple of days. It's just like, well, you may disagree, but he's the champion. It's like we disagree for obvious reasons, for stuff that you and I have talked about a million times. That if McLaren was fair, Oscar would have ran away with this and wrapped up the championship by Las Vegas. And I don't know if you saw the same reporting or got the same feeling from the commentary, but just to watch them change the goalpost it's been gross.
I mean, I don't really pay attention to it because it's all just noise. The whole point of commentary is to get opinion, effectively. You're always going to get an editorial view of what's happening, colored by the person that's saying it. And whether we like to admit it or not, everybody has bias.
Mm-hmm.
So, regardless of what the commentators say, we have the result that we have. They can't change it. Their opinion of it can't change it. And if people are so wrapped up in what the commentators think that that's what they choose to believe, it's their problem. So, to me, it's just whatever. It's noise. It's in the background. I agree with some commentators. I don't agree with most of them.
Your very wise words will hopefully help me sleep at night. I'm not being facetious with that. Like, it's because what you said was very, very bright. It's just, I think they think they speak for the people, or they read enough comments and they go, oh, we gotta quell the people before they rise up and throw us out of our jobs. You know what I mean? Like, I think there's just that underlying, like, we have to keep things in order in the way that they speak, because F1 fans know that the best driver didn't win the title. And I don't know if you've seen a lot of the memes going around the internet where there's that Ford versus Ferrari scene at the end when Ken Miles is looking around and he sees Enzo Ferrari. Enzo Ferrari tips his hat to him. And a lot of people are making the video like Max is Ken Miles and everybody's surrounding Lando Norris, but it's Formula One fans tipping their hat to Max from what they just saw. I think the fans know what's really going on here.
No, I mean, anybody that's been watching this season should be able to see that, right? He's gone from a really shitty car to finally something that he could get on top of. Still had its problems and its inconsistencies, but was able to put it on pole this weekend by a good margin. Basically, 2 laps in Q3, which were pole laps. I think he was 0.2 up on Norris.
Yep.
In P2. So that in itself was a statement. At that point, I think it was pretty much a given that he was going to take it. Excuse me. And then from there, we saw Lando do what he's done many times last season, not so much this season, but still present, where just can't put the start together. And Oscar did, prove that he has the balls and the capability to make a move. All right, that overtake on lap 1 on Norris was phenomenal. There's not many people that would try that around the outside of turn 6, I think it was.
Mm-hmm. With harder tires.
Yeah, on the hard tire, first lap cold. That shouldn't have happened. And he was able to do it and still give Lando enough room to be comfortable. So I'm sure someone will come out there and say, oh, well, that looks like it was orchestrated and Lando gave him the position. But, I mean, either way, it's a beautiful overtake. And even if you were trying to give him the position, that's not the area to do it. Yeah. So I don't want to get into that, but I think what we saw were the 2 best drivers really come to play. And the guy that knew all he had to do was take third, just happy to be in third. Right? Because no matter what happened, if he was on the podium, he won.
Yeah.
So to me, from Lando's standpoint, it seemed like a race of let's do the bare minimum, which is not the sign of a good champion. So we'll see how that plays out next year. But I think Verstappen and Piastri have nothing to be upset about. They both got out there and they did exactly what they needed to do, and they fought for it. And it's just a shame that the season played out the way it did,
Mm-hmm.
and Norris was able to hang on to it.
Hang on by being helped out by like the worst combination. You're right. It's not a great way to win. It's not what a natural winner would want, right? I think after Zandvoort and all the struggles, I think something turned around in the McLaren team. I think some rallying point came around Lando. They really wanted him to win. We'll talk about that later. But I think Lando should have learned in that moment, and if, say, there was no orders against Oscar throughout the season, he would have been way down. I think he would have been down almost 100 points at that point. And I think if you overcome that, say, next year, if you learn your struggles this season and overcome and come back and win 2026, wouldn't that be better than having your team, and even at times it seemed like the FIA, step in for you whenever you needed it so you could just barely cling on to a title? Like, wouldn't you rather have the overcoming, I was down, like Rocky moment, but I got up? The way he won was just so gross. No one even cheered at the end. I don't know if you saw at the end, he brings up his car and his family's hugging him and everybody's just awkwardly like looking around and shaking each other's hands because they don't hear any cheers. There's probably a lot of boos that I think they cut out too, I imagine, because nobody was buying it. Nobody was into it.
I mean, at the end of the day, Nick, it's not worth complaining about. We had a really good season, and it made for a tight race all the way to the end. So I'm not upset about it. It is what it is, and we'll deal with the outcome. I think there's more to talk about here than Norris. So if you're good, I think we should move on.
We will, and I appreciate you being positive, but just forgive me for the second half of this episode. Max or the penalty? What would you like to talk about? Potential penalty. Was it a penalty?
Let's talk about the not penalty. So Yuki got a 5-second penalty.
Yeah.
For driving erratically or forcing another driver off the track. I forget what it was. He was driving erratically or moving under whatever the fuck they called it. But basically, he made too many moves to defend against Norris. Sorry, excuse me. He deserved that penalty. That was a sloppy defense. He could have made that defense a little more solid and harder to justify a penalty with if it hadn't been so erratic. The thing that pissed me off about it, Yuki deserved the penalty. I agree with that. But so did Norris. Yuki's defense had stopped with Norris behind him. He did not push Norris to the outside. Norris chose to go around the outside of Yuki instead of cut back to the inside, which he could have done. Now, would Yuki have cut over even further to the inside if he had tried to do that? Maybe. And that would have merited another penalty. But to make the conscious decision to go around the outside over track limits, and he was over track limits, it's very clear when you look at it, deserves a penalty. Yuki doing something that's wrong doesn't negate the fact that Norris did something that was wrong. The track limit is the first white line of that painted box, and Norris was over it. And he made the pass entirely over track limits. The appropriate thing to do would have been to cut towards the inside and pass him on the inside, but that's not what happened. And we got what we got. So that was relatively early on in the race. Could Norris have made up 5 seconds? I think so. So that's where I'll leave that. I don't know how you feel about it.
I said it in the intro. I said I didn't think much of it And you're right. Like I think he still beat Leclerc by 6 seconds with time to spare. Wasn't going to make much of a difference. But when Sky Sports is adamantly telling me why that shouldn't be a penalty and why it's all Yuki's fault, then I started to get suspicious. I'm like, oh, okay, if you're adamantly trying to if you're trying to explain to me why I shouldn't think that's a penalty, even though I've seen that penalty given a million times, then it sounds.
Sebastian Vettel got a penalty for doing the exact same thing.
Yeah. So why are they going out of their way to convince me otherwise? That's when I started to get suspicious. And yeah, so I think you described it perfectly. That's a perfect way to look at it. Both of them could have gotten penalties for what they did. The
And
Norris.
should've.
Yeah, exactly. Norris didn't need to go on the outside. He wasn't. You're right. He wasn't forced off. That was his choice.
He had a track width to the inside.
Yeah. So you're right. Like, what's going on there? I've spoken about it a million times before. I'm not going to delve deep into my opinions here, but there was absolutely no need to not give him a penalty. Wouldn't have made a difference. But I just think it speaks to the help he's had all year. I think everybody wants to see him win. So I've made peace with that. There's not much else to say.
Yep. So, Max Verstappen then?
Max Verstappen, yeah, I now think this will be a long conversation. He's just amazing. But yeah, what do you think?
I mean, I don't know what to say. I've been relatively consistent all season that I agree Max is a world-class driver, deserves the championships that he has. I don't particularly like him as a driver, but that's for my own reasons. That's not for anything really tangible for these conversations. He deserves the credits that he has, though. He's gotten out there and he's put in the work and he's made some bad decisions along the way, but you can't downplay the fact that he has an extreme talent behind the wheel. Mm-hmm. And the fact that he was able to, let me confirm here. Yeah, to win early in the season twice with what was a pretty terrible car. Right? He won Japan and he won Imola. And he's got some good success kind of sprinkled in between, but then had a real kind of slump in the middle and then came back mid-season and the car was basically yo-yoing for most of the season, right? But he ended the season with the most wins.
Yeah.
So this is a team that was fourth place in the constructors for most of the season. And really only fourth place because Williams was the beginning of the midfield in fifth. So they were bottom of the upper end of the pack. And Max has the most wins in the season?
Yeah.
You can't do that unless you know what you're doing behind the wheel. Right? There's a handful of seasons where the champion has not taken the most wins. This is one of them. And it just goes to show that if you have a consistent car, you're more likely to be there. But it doesn't mean you're safe. Right? Because Max was nothing if not inconsistent.
Yeah.
He's able to put it up there and he's able to win races despite the hardware he's given. But even he is human and makes mistakes, right? We've got a couple of 0 points. We've got 1s and 2s in there. And that's not exclusive to him. The top 3, the top 4 are all the same way. You know, wins, podiums, 0 points, individual points. That was the nature of this season. We called it at the beginning of the season that it was going to be a close year. And effectively what we got were 3 really close battles. Right? The Constructors' Championship, let's say, was kind of divided into 3 sections. Call it like 2 1/4, if you will. Right? You've got the upper pack, the mid pack, and Alpine. So I think it was definitely worthwhile watching these 24 races and seeing how they all went about it. In my mind, Max Verstappen is the best driver of this season
Yes.
and probably will continue to be moving forward. I think McLaren has kind of browbeat Oscar a little bit and potentially created some of the psychological issues that Norris has in Oscar because of what they've done this season. And all I can say is that I hope that next year he comes out and he grabs that car and that new technology by the throat and doesn't let go.
I want to give you some kudos. You were the one. I thought this would be a runaway for Max because I thought he was the best driver on the grid. You called the close, tight groupings. I want to give you the credit for that one.
Sure.
You did say it would be a tight midfield. I just want to add to your point because you're right. It actually was 4 echelons of the constructors. There was number 1 that ran away with it, number 10, which ran away from everybody else, Alpine, and second to fourth, and then 5th to 9th. It was very exciting. So yeah, you could say instead of 2 1/4, you can just say 4, Alpine and McLaren being their own, whatever the fuck you want to call it. McLaren for the good. I think
that's fair.
Yeah, McLaren for the good, Alpine for the I had
a couple of things.
Sorry, go on. Yeah.
No, go ahead.
No, I elicited a big discussion, so you might as well talk about what you want to talk about first.
Okay. Excuse me. I just want to point out a couple of things about Alpine. So this season is the first season ever, I think, where we do not have a team that has 0 points or kind of 1-2s kind of thing. Right? The fact that Alpine has 22 points is an outlier in the F1 championship. Usually the bottom of the pack has no points.
Yeah.
The other impressive thing about that, and impressive doesn't mean good or bad, it's just impressive. Alpine has 22 points with 3 drivers where only 1 driver scored points.
Yeah, I was going to say Gasly has 22.
Right. So how did a driver like Colapinto, who was so well regarded last year and had some success in Williams, fall so completely flat that he is empirically the worst driver on the grid? He is technically worse than Doohan because Doohan only got 5 races, so you can only judge him on 5 races. It's 0 points on 5 versus 0 points on 19.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Wild. I think his countback, Doohan had a better countback because of the fewer races. That's why he finished ahead.
Yeah, exactly.
I have no answer for that. I have no answer for how Colapinto dropped off. I have inklings, but...
Yeah. So not only is he empirically the worst driver on the grid, he is the worst rookie.
Mm-hmm.
And he is one of the most experienced rookies that we had. So that doesn't bode well for him next year.
Yeah. Him and Lawson. Lawson with 11 races, him with 9 races, fell the flattest.
Yeah.
I think we should save that for when we do the constructors recap. But I think I'll just say this. I think Jack Doohan is owed a huge apology.
Absolutely.
A huge apology.
Not necessarily from Alpine because we know why that decision was made. But from F1 as a whole, Jack Doohan is owed an apology.
Yeah. Him and Nick DeVries, right? Both of them stepped into shitty situations where both teams didn't really want them. They were fighting amongst themselves. They were trying to figure out their identity, and they just got thrown under the bus and not really given a fair shot. Sorry.
I'm less inclined to give Nick DeVries leeway there, but I see what you're saying.
There was...
Nick DeVries at least had...
Nick DeVries
had credentials to forecast that he should have done better. Right? He's won championships in other series. more than one, he should have been better than he was. That being said, I will agree that he wasn't given a fair shake.
Yeah, because like he came into the worst car. He was 29. I think he hadn't driven in Formula One or Formula Two for 4 years at that point. And he came into the worst car and he was given 10 races. And by like race 3, he was being scrutinized.
It wasn't the worst car, but yeah, I know what you're saying.
Empirically, it was. It had the least points. So
Because
Yuki,
of Nick DeVries.
well, Yuki only had 2 points. Everybody forgets that 2023. Everybody was saying, "Oh, look how great Yuki is. He's really matured." He had 2 points and a bunch of 11th places. It's not really fair
Right.
to compare that and say, "Oh, Nick DeVries must be even like 20 times worse." No, he hasn't been in these types of cars in almost 4 years. If you want him, like you said you did preseason, give him the season. But they didn't really want him.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
I'm with you. Like I said, he didn't get a fair shake at it. He should have got at least half a season and had a proper metric. Because I don't agree that Yuki having 2 points meant it was the worst car. Yuki getting 11th place was what that car was capable of. Yuki getting 2 points and then getting a bunch of 16, 17, 18s would have been a different story. What I'm looking at is the gap between DeVries and Yuki, which is very similar to a lot of the gaps we saw between Gasly and Colapinto. When Gasly's scoring points, Colapinto is in 17, 18, 20, right?
Yeah.
A good car with good drivers, you would expect them to be together. A bad car with decent drivers, you would expect them to be relatively the same, right? When you look at Ferrari this year, whatever you think about Hamilton and Leclerc, they're competent drivers, but the car wasn't there. And what do we see? We see them in what you would expect. Hamilton 7th, Leclerc 6th in the Drivers' Championship. That is exactly where that car belongs with two drivers that know what they're doing. When you look at Mercedes, Russell and Antonelli, 5th and 8th. It's a reasonable car, but you've got a driver who can't overtake worth the shit and a rookie. And you've got Ferrari that split them, right? That's what I would expect to see from teammates that are on the same page, whether or not the car is good or bad.
All right. I don't want to delve too much into Nick DeVries, but I will just say this about Antonelli. It's that hopefully he makes a leap next year because it doesn't look good at the moment. If there's that,
I think that's a bit unfair.
But the gap to Russell, right?
The gap to Russell is 169 points. Yeah. Less than, but it's about 150 point gap, say. Which, as a rookie coming into Mercedes, having skipped F3 to go to F2, and with the pressure that was put on him, I think he did extremely well. This could have gone way worse for him. He's in 7th place in the Drivers' Championship, 156 points. He is 6 points shy of Lewis Hamilton. He is almost 100 points above Carlos Sainz. And we think Carlos Sainz has had a great season, right? There's a perspective issue here. Antonelli has actually been fairly impressive for an 18-year-old kid in what should be championship-winning hardware. I think if you had an Oscar Piastri or Carlos Sainz in that Mercedes next to Antonelli, we would be talking about a very different world drivers champion.
So it's the Russell's underperforming model, essentially. That you think this car is a lot better, and Antonelli kept a decent pace to Russell and that other drivers would have done a lot more with this Mercedes.
I do. And I think if Antonelli had a teammate that knew what he was doing, it would have helped him as well. So we talked about it before, where Russell has improved on a weekend, specifically Singapore, based on Antonelli's feedback. That should be going the other way. If you had put Sainz in the Mercedes with Antonelli, I think we would have had Sainz 1, 2, maybe 3, and Antonelli would have been up there. Maybe not 1, 2, 3, but 4, 5, absolutely. He seems to be a kid that knows what he's doing and knows how to get out there and put the work in.
All right. We'll see. I'll go easy on him. I do agree with you that he's been given the pressure. More pressure than anybody else mid-season. The people talking about, like Jacques Villeneuve, like the commentators going, "Oh, how is he 4/10 off of Russell every race?" Like trying to say he's not going to be anything special. I think he's gone through the ringer. He's had the tough spell, and hopefully there's light at the end of the tunnel for him. You did just make a good case, so I'll keep my mouth shut on that.
Yeah, and I mean, don't listen to Jacques Villeneuve. Fuck does he know?
Yeah, fuck him. You're right. Accidentally, because you and I don't discuss the episode before we come on, but accidentally you just said 3 things that I made into philosophical absolutes that I wanted to discuss. Where you said Max is the best.
One of them fuck Villeneuve?
No, it was before that when you said Oscar got screwed. Max is the best driver. That's my first absolute. Oscar got screwed and it's all his fault. And Lando Norris is a fraud.
I don't know that I said those things.
Inadvertently you did. And my mind went there.
Your mind goes a lot of places it probably shouldn't.
Correct. We'll discuss all 3 of these absolutes. But the biggest one being Max is the best driver on the grid. And 8 wins. I think I just wanted to add to the point you made about him. I think he's entering his Michael era, where this comeback was possible because the engineers and the team rallied around him, rallied around what he wanted every race. Even weekends where he started bad, like Brazil, they were able to turn the car around by giving him what he wanted. There is one time in history where someone has won 6 of the last 9 races and almost won the title. It was Michael Schumacher in 2006. Fell short to Fernando Alonso when his gearbox blew at Japan. And I think you can make a case that that was Brazil for Max when his car just fell apart out of nowhere. What do you think? It's a quick question just to add to this discussion. What was more damaging to Max's title out of these 5 that I'm about to list? Australia, the non-pit stop where they stayed out an extra lap. Spain, with the penalty, where Max just ate a reporter's face off on Sunday. I don't know if you saw that, about that question. The lull in the middle, so Silverstone, Austria, and Spa, where Red Bull just fell apart and just kept making mistakes. In Austria, Max was hit off by Antonelli. 4, Brazil. Do you think that was it? Do you think that was the moment where the title was lost by not keeping Max out there? Or do you think, like a lot of people are saying, was it Antonelli at Qatar? Out of those 5 I just listed, what do you think was more damaging and kept Max from winning the title?
To be honest with you, Nick, I think it's a stupid question. Because you've given me 5 options, and we're talking about 3 points. You needed 3 points to win, right?
Yeah.
Australia, he came in second. So yes, it's more than 3 points. Okay. But if you use that metric, what about China?
That's a good point.
What about Bahrain?
Bad pit
Saudi
stops.
Arabia?
Bad pit stops. That's not. You're absolutely right.
Miami?
Yeah, well, Miami.
Monaco? Spain? You said Canada? Right? There are plenty of races. Hungary? 2 points in Hungary? Max is great around Hungary.
I just say those are the 5 flashpoints, I think, of the season. Like Spain, the penalty. Antonelli going
Right.
off at Qatar. Brazil. Like, out of those 5
I
flashpoints.
understand.
Yeah.
But this is the stupidity and why Max is frustrated with the reporters. The entire season has culminated in him being 2 points back from the champion. He needed 3 points. If Antonelli hadn't made that mistake, he would have been at 423, which, because he won more races, he would have taken the championship. Fine. But you can't associate another driver's mistake with Max Verstappen. So to me, the question of Qatar is irrelevant.
Did I lose you?
No, I'm here.
Sorry, you just cut out for a sec. So you
Can you hear
said,
me?
I can hear you now. So you said the whether the question is irrelevant. That's where I think you got cut
Yeah,
out.
the aspect of Qatar and Kimi losing position to Norris isn't really a topic for Verstappen. You can't associate what Kimi did with anything to damage Verstappen's season. Because Verstappen did everything he could in Qatar. 25 points. Great. Instead of focusing on Kimi losing a position, why not focus on why didn't Max capitalize on the sprint? He had
Yes,
5 points in the sprint. If he had won the sprint, he'd have 3 points.
it's a good point. I'll just put it this way.
Right.
I'll give you my reason. Maybe this will. I guess you've made up your mind on this, but I'll just give you my reasoning, and maybe it'll elicit a different thought in you. It's if I had to pick one of those 5 that I listed, I would pick Australia, because I think it set the tone for the first half of the season with Red Bull, where they were too scared, too chicken shit to act and make the right decision because they were too afraid to lose, and then they lost. And yeah, that's 7 points that makes a difference, where Max absolutely should have dived into the pits like he wanted to when everybody else had, and he had a pit stop freedom to put on intermediates on a wet track. And Red Bull's too scared to act because for some reason they think the wet track is going to dry in a lap. I just think that set the tone more than anything else. Like, yeah, Spain, he had a bad race and a bad penalty. Yeah, so did Norris at Vegas. So that negates each other. Norris gets disqualified. Norris had a mechanical DNF in Zandvoort. Max had a DNF in Austria. Those negate each other. Oscar DNF in Baku, disqualification in Vegas. Right, so just negate those. Like, things happen throughout the season. But in terms of what Red Bull could have made a difference in, it was that race. I think that's if that changes, the entire season changes, and Max probably runs away with it, in my opinion.
No, I disagree. The car was inherently bad. 7 more points in Australia would have put him over the edge to get the championship, sure. But it doesn't change the performance of the rest of the season. I understand what you're saying about attitude and mentality and being able to make a decision. But ultimately, when Max Verstappen was not scoring, 1 point in Spain, that was a penalty because he did something stupid, because he was frustrated with the car. Austria, 0, because he got bumped off by Antonelli. Why was he in a position where he could get bumped off by Antonelli? Why wasn't he running in free air in P1?
Yellow flag in qualifying.
Regardless, we saw at the end of the season, he put in 2 laps that were good enough for pole, 2/10 ahead of Lando Norris. When he has a connection with the car, he does amazing things. Clearly, this season, he was not connected with his car. He's lucky to have scored the amount of points that he has with the car being so inconsistent.
Yeah. No, I can agree with that.
This season for him could have been Yuki's season. Right? If he wasn't such an android, we could have seen a season where Verstappen was P10, P11. Luckily, we didn't. And this is why I think, it's clear to me why Max is frustrated when people ask him that question. He said it himself. the result is the culmination of the season. He is where he is because that's how the season played out. It's not one race, it's multiple points in the season that didn't work for him. So pick it up next year, start over, do it again.
I hear what you're saying, and you make some good points. However, Helmut Marko just resigned, which speaks to an infighting that you and I have been talking about for years, and probably plagued the first half of the season for Red Bull, an infighting between Marko and Horner. So, what I'm just trying to say is I'm going to lean towards conspiracy, causing the first half of decline for Max Verstappen. But what are your thoughts on Marko resigning? Do you think this is much needed? Do you think they should have done this first and then fired Horner now? Or do you think this was the right play? Do you think this was the only play?
I think it was the right play. I've been saying it for at least 2 years that Marko needs to go. He's a fucking dinosaur. He's a relic of a more racist time. And he doesn't have a place in F1 anymore. That being said, he has a connection to Max Verstappen. And if he had gone earlier without Horner going, it's pretty much a given that Max Verstappen probably would not be at Red Bull next year. So, to me, it was a no-brainer that Horner needed to go, and he needed to go quick. Because what happened when Horner left? Excuse me.
Big turnaround.
That was at Spa, right?
Yes.
It was halfway through the season, and we got a massive turnaround. The car didn't magically get better after Spa. Oh, excuse me. Oh, shit. This is a team morale thing. I think Horner was toxic in general for the team, and he was trying to make moves that would have hurt the team overall. He was trying to get more power for himself. And it's not the governing body, the executives at Red Bull, keeping in mind that there are two different groups involved here. There's Red Bull, the energy drink company, and then there's Red Bull Racing. They are two different companies. Red Bull as a whole didn't want to do what Christian Horner wanted. And that's ultimately why he's gone. And I think him leaving had a massive benefit on on Red Bull Racing. Bringing in Laurent Mekies was an interesting decision at the time, but now I think there's actually more to it than we initially understood, especially with Marko leaving. Because apparently, if you believe some of the stuff that's been written, and if you've read all the stuff that's been written, Marko leaving is potentially because of friction with Mekies and the fact that Mekies doesn't agree that Helmut should have any of the authority that he does. So this kind of awkward little Frenchman that they put in charge of the team, who always looks kind of happy, then, excited that he's got this new role, actually has a pair of balls under him to go and stand up to Red Bull's parent company and say this guy that's been working for them for 20 years is out of line and needs to be put in his place. So I think Laurent coming in for Hungary onwards had a massive change to the operation of the team. And then as a side note to that, has shifted, or has helped shift, let's say, the power balance at Red Bull back to something that's more stable.
Yes.
So if you want to go back to the conversation of what could have helped Max's season, ditch Horner in Saudi Arabia when we first heard about the fucking File 57 or whatever it was.
In 2024.
Oh, was that 2024?
Yeah.
We're a year on from
Well,
that?
you and I called that
Wow.
then. You and I did call that then. We did call
Yeah.
for exactly that then. And it looks like Mecky's, it looks like Horner was really scaring everybody. Remember I said at the beginning of the season, they're acting listless. Like they're making mistakes they don't make in like the pit stops, in setup. I'm saying something's wrong, something's off, right? Everybody was scared to make a decision. All Mecky's did was come in and say, I trust each position, do your job.
Yes.
Right? Like he said to Max, okay, what do you want? I want this in my car. Pierre Wache famously, he said in an interview, I think it was after Monza, he goes, I didn't want to give Max that. I disagreed completely. But Laurent stepped in and said, give Max what he wants. And then he became a believer of Max. And I think Max became a believer of Laurent. That's why we are able to see Marco go too. Because you're right,
Yes.
Max and Marco are close. But if Max is like, you know what, this is working, maybe it is time for you to retire, Helmet. It's been great. You're still someone I respect. But things are working pretty good. So
Yeah.
Go on.
I don't know that Max would have had any input on that. I don't know how much you've read into it, Nick, but let's say what I've seen and what seems to be making sense is that there has been a rift in the leadership at Red Bull. Have you heard about the Alex Dunn nonsense?
Yeah, they didn't. Helmet Marco signed him against the wishes of everybody else. Didn't have the authority
Not
to do
against
it.
Didn't have the authority. He went and drew up a contract with Dunn without the authority to do it, which is ultimately what pissed Mecky's off, because Mecky's as team principal has a say in who drives for him. And because of that, there's now an exit clause that's been triggered that's going to cost Red Bull hundreds of thousands of euro to not fulfill that contract.
Wow.
So officially, as far as the team and Red Bull state, Marco has resigned. So he was not fired. He decided to end his contract 1 year early, which anybody who's been in the business world long enough knows that's usually not a decision that's made unilaterally. That's usually a face-saving type of opportunity to say we'll allow you to resign and leave on a positive note, rather than be fired.
Leave or we destroy you.
Without saying it that way, sure.
Yes. Wasn't Lindblad the same thing? Didn't they apparently not want him either, and Marco pushed that through?
That's the way it's been for a number of people, a number of these drivers. So I think it's just a culmination of they no longer trust his judgment.
Wow. That's going to make 2026 very interesting. There's two other, I think I'm going to have to save the last two philosophical absolutes for our recap episode because I'm running out of time here. Anything else you want to add about the Marco situation, about Max? Anything else you want to add about this season?
No, I think Marco, Max, I'm done with.
What's the best way to sum up this season to you?
The best way to sum up the season, this is how I want to see F1 run every year. I want title battles to go to the end. I personally don't care about the constructors. I'd rather see the drivers go at it. If we've got 20 drivers, if we could have 20 constructors, I'd feel the same way. But to me, I want to see the teams and the drivers battling to the end. This nonsense of wrapping up a title fight in Coda when you've still got, 5 races left is nonsense to me. Because what's the incentive at that point? The fact that we had so many battles in the final race, so many constructors' position potential changes, was phenomenal. That's what I want to see at the end of the season. If we're not competing for anything after Coda or Mexico, why bother racing? You may as well have it that once the constructors and the drivers is wrapped up, then don't bother racing the rest of them.
Yeah.
Now, it's a bit ridiculous to say because obviously there are battles happening down the pack that have an impact on next year, but let's be real. The majority of fans don't care about P2 down. They want to know who wins,
Yep.
which I don't agree with. But that is something that is a fact in this sport. So if we can have every season be the way this season was, I think the sport would benefit better than trying to force it into, let's say, artificial popularity.
Drive to Survive.
I was questioning whether or not I should point that out, but I thought it was clear.
I'm just hoping our fans get there, Sean.
Appreciate it, Nick.
I agree, and wholeheartedly. And Formula One used to be like this. I think I've said it before. I think they tinker too much with the rules, and it takes time to develop championships like this. I think if you just let the teams fly, like set one standard engine, just leave it for 10, 15 years, you'll have stuff like this all the time. That's what they used to do. But
Yeah,
we'll see.
I'll just add there that Bernie Ecclestone was really the death of F1, in my opinion. Because up to a certain point, he was the one fucking with the rules at every chance that he got.
Yep.
Near the end of his reign. I'm disappointed that these cars are going away. I think this regulation set has the potential to go further, but we'll see what the next year gives us. I'm cautious that I think they're heading in the wrong direction in the sense that it's the same direction that happened in 2016. Like these cars are too fast. There's too much downforce. They're too reliant on the downforce. Let's strip it all away. And that's when we got those stupid, tiny little rear wings, no downforce, and nobody could get close to each other. And we went years with nobody being able to race. I hope next year isn't that, but all I'm hearing is less downforce, less load, which then, we've seen a lot of great overtaking moves this year based on the fact that the drivers have confidence in the cars. And that confidence comes from the insane amount of downforce that they have. We're seeing moves like Oscar Piastri around the outside of Norris in turn 6 in Abu Dhabi because he has confidence in the ability of that car at that speed. If you take that away and you make the cars more complicated to drive, you're going to get worse racing. So I hope that's not what we're going to see next year. But yeah.
I'm sure it is, Sean. I wholeheartedly agree because I've said it to you before. Everything was fine up until 2008 and then 2009. It has a 2009 feeling, these sets of regulations. It's up and down changes, whole new sets of rules. That year was awful, in my opinion. I know a lot of people look admiringly back at that year and say, "Oh, Braun GP, once in a lifetime event." Yeah, that was terrible. You went from two of the best title fights in history in 2007, 2008 to one driver winning 7 of the first 8 races, and they had to change a whole new set of rules essentially mid-season to make it competitive. Let everybody copy Braun just to make it competitive, and 2026 has that feel where it's just going to be something where we're going to look at it and go, ugh. I've seen this a million times before. I'm not optimistic, but we'll see.
Yeah. So, it's a short turnaround to next season.
Mm-hmm.
I think they start testing end of January, don't they?
Yep, January 26th.
So, we don't have to wait long.
Just to end the episode, I can sum up this season with one sentence. So all of you end up being Michael after all. This idea
I don't
that
think anybody understood that.
yeah, I'm going to explain it.
It's not one sentence, is it?
Well, it's the phrase that elicits conversation. God damn it. This talk of the last 3 years that Michael ruined the sport because he never had a teammate, or I guess not that he ruined the sport, but that he ruined competition because he never had a teammate that could compete with him. They always had a distinct number 2 driver, right? A lot of that talk came back when Max was crushing Checo, when there was potential infighting between the two of them, when Max was like, I don't want Checo to fight for the championship. This is my championship. A lot of talk that maybe they were messing with Checo's car. A lot of talk that it was just not the same. Like they should put somebody else in that car to see if Max could compete because, Max is running away with it. Never once praising Max for what he was doing. And in the end, Lando Norris needed to be Michael Schumacher after all, but worse.
Mm-hmm.
He needed his driver put in his place, his second driver put in his place. I just think for all that talk, we saw exactly why you have 1 and 2 drivers. Number 1 and number 2 drivers.
Sure.
All this talk of the last 3 years. And everybody's fine with it because Lando won. But just remember how we got here, everybody. That's all I'm going to say.
Now, you just reminded me of something, and I want to bring it up because I think it's merited at this point.
All right, last thing.
This talk about Max Verstappen and his teammates, right? The Checo thing. Right? Put somebody else in that car to see if he's competitive. An interesting stat came out this weekend. You know what the average delta between Max and his teammates were in qualifying?
Which year? This year?
Any of them.
Average delta every
Since
year?
Since Max joined Red Bull.
3/10?
No.
1/10?
5/10.
5/10?
That is the average delta between all of Max's teammates. Pierre Gasly, 5/10. Alex Albon, 5/10. Sergio Perez, 5/10.
Wow.
Yuki, 5/10. You know who the best is?
Out of those or in general?
All of his teammates.
Daniel.
Exactly. 2/10. Besides Daniel, who's the next best?
Checo.
Which season?
2023.
Right. Well, no. Sorry. That's what I wanted you to say. That's not right. Checo in 2023 is 5.5 tenths.
Oh, wow.
It's actually the worst. So Yuki is no worse than any of his other teammates. And his other teammates are doing great things. Right? They're all still in F1, with the exception of Danny. Put that aside. And they're all leading, ostensibly, the teams that they're in. We have an entire team made up of former Verstappen teammates in Williams.
Wow.
There is nothing wrong with talent that is in the seat next to Max Verstappen. Max Verstappen is an anomaly, and you cannot denigrate any of the teammates he's had for being poor drivers. And I say this just to close off the episode that Yuki Tsunoda's gotten a bit of a raw deal this year, but at least he can go out on a high knowing that he is no worse than Pierre Gasly, Sainz, Albon, Perez. Hopefully we see him back on the grid.
Yeah, is that qualifying pace or race pace?
It's qualifying pace.
I'll leave that there. It's a very interesting stat, though. And on that note, that closes up the 2025 season, I think, perfectly. Seeing what we saw with Max, yeah, you can't. There's an underlying reason for that second Red Bull seat being such a disaster. You're never going to find lightning in a bottle. Maybe just stick with somebody who's steady. They would wish they had Checo this year. We'll talk about that in our season recap. Sean, have yourself a good week. Good season. We'll finish it off in style in a couple weeks.
Sounds good, Nick.
Good night.
Good night.